Listeners, I see Michael already smiling. He anticipates what I would say. My good friend.
And I put my head on a block, and I offer Mr. Brother Bishop the scalpel to cut it off.
The political leader has said several times up to last night that is not a reflection of her personal views or the views of the party. And you understand, George, how elections at the party level work.
So Dr. Payne, do you have ties? Do you have ties to the National Democratic Congress, Dr. Payne? Or rather, were you commissioned by the NDC to do
use
this
that
poll?
information because it seems interesting that a lot of your advice is very consistent with what was said. Brilliant.
And good luck with everything.
You too, man.
May the best candidate win in the town of St. George.
But kill on.
Yes.
You is a tongue man too, so stop at that. Tell everybody you are a tongue man too.
We are a people who have always aspired for more. Who've always aspired to do better. Who've always accepted that not because your mother didn't go to secondary school, you should go. It has always been the other way around. You should aspire.
You've been there for a long time. Want to be queen of St. Andrews, but yet the problems around you you're not seeing. You can pray yourself out of the problems in St. Andrews.
Some persons were getting pension after 2 terms in office, right? And the persons that work for 26 years plus not getting anything. It's just unfair.
God is good, and God looks after me. You know, not just my wife is no longer here, so both herself and the father up there are looking after me very, very well indeed.
Not a few people that you pick up by the side of the road to run in an election. These are not people that you mustered up and you pulled together a few months before you think an election is going to call, and you say we want to win an election, so let's come together.
We seek the truth.
Would you be handing your resignation to the Minister of Culture tomorrow, sir?
No, I will not.
The leader of the opposition, you have accused your government, sir, of using the Grenada Development Bank to facilitate the financing of personal loans for certain government ministers.
The other side is in no position to talk about those issues, and I will leave it there.
We discover new perspectives.
You know his leadership style, and so many are saying, why are you coming now to talk about those issues?
Now is the time to speak. You have the right to decide who will take over.
And you met with Dr. Mitchell, and perhaps you might want to confirm what that meeting was about in your response. But
Dr. Mitchell, like myself, are Grenadians.
We ask the right questions.
Why was there no report on the work done of the commission? And how is this new committee different from the commission that was initially established back in 2022? So who are these elements that are using you?
I'm disappointed in my political leader.
And why is that animating those political conversations now?
This is a very interesting question.
The Bubb Report with Dr. Kellon Bubb. Thought-provoking, truthful, unbiased, and truly original reporting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of the Bubb Report. This is the October 27th edition of the program, the last episode for the month of October. I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellon Bubb, and if you're joining us on Facebook, do us a favor by sharing this week's live stream. And for those over on YouTube, do us a favor by liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel so that you can be engaged with the content that we produce on a weekly and daily basis. Now for this week's editorial. News last week of the resignation of Jonathan Lacrette, the much celebrated NDC St. George Northwest candidate in the 2022 election, is all the buzz in Grenadian political circles. His dismissal from cabinet as Minister of Youth and Sport, owing to what the Prime Minister simply called a lack of confidence, still leaves more questions than answers. The Prime Minister's opaque explanation, followed by Lacrette's even more opaque post-firing live stream, is an incomplete bookend to the story of Lacrette and the NDC. Now, when Lacrette's former colleague, the Honorable Delma Thomas, crossed over to the Congress party, the public was given a full accounting of the circumstances leading to her resignation from the new National Party. In fact, Thomas offered a full-throated timeline of the deterioration of the relationship between her and Dr. Mitchell in 2022. In fact, she even appeared on the Bubb Report on several appearances to make the case why she and Dr. Mitchell fell out of grace. In the case of Lacrette, however, we have only been in receipt of third-party information about his attempts to rein in allegations of impropriety at the Grenada National Lotteries Authority that the Prime Minister allegedly was not happy about. There are also allegations that Lacrette is allegedly owing monies for a St. George Northwest cruise that was held earlier in the year. Now, while Lacrette has not spoken publicly about the circumstances surrounding his firing or the circumstances surrounding his resignation from the party, sources in the constituency close to Lacrette, who he has been speaking to, say the former senator still doesn't know the circumstances surrounding his firing. That source also indicated that Lacrette's downfall may have also been attributed to a soured relationship between himself and the NDC chairperson in Northwest, Dr. McClatchy Dotton, who might be making a play to be the caretaker candidate for the constituency in the next election. Of course, it must be noted that Mr. Dotton himself was a former member of the new National Party. And this brings us to the other political dynamics at play in Dr. Mitchell's Bastion constituency. On the heels of Lacrette's firing, former NNP Senator Neelan Franklin also quit the Senate, owing to what also said was his disillusionment with Dr. Mitchell's style of leadership and a reneging of a promise made to Franklin that he may be the NNP's caretaker candidate in the next election. So where does this leave Lacrette and Franklin? Are we going to see a caretaker candidate sweepstakes in the Northwest, with either party snagging the disaffected gentleman into their camps? Now, what does the Lacrette chapter in the NDC tell us about Deacon Mitchell's style of leadership? Further, if Lacrette decides to join the ranks of the new National Party, what does that tell us about his thinking, considering his previously fraught relationship with the previous government as a public servant in the Ministry of Education? Of course, the Lacrette chapter in politics, with which still potentially many chapters, is a reminder that politics certainly makes strange bedfellows. This saying is adapted from a line in the play The Tempest by William Shakespeare, when he says, quote, "Misery acquaints a man with strange bedfellows," unquote. It is spoken by a man who has been shipwrecked and finds himself seeking shelter beside a sleeping monster. Or put another way, when it comes to politics, be careful what you wish for. Folks, we will continue to watch the space. Of course, folks, you're watching the Bubb Report. We'll be right back with our first guest for this week's program, Mr. Ian Blakey of the Grenada Green Group. Please stand by.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797 That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
Everything is spotless and under control. How come the same toddler cannot run a ministry?
I formed the view that I had personally lost trust and confidence in Minister Lacrette in his capacity as a minister, and in those circumstances I thought it was appropriate for me to inform him of that fact and to inform his fellow cabinet colleagues.
How come the same toddler cannot run a ministry or run the country together with his colleagues and political leaders? So the youthful narrative is still outdated, expired, analog, and that is a mirror of how Mr. MP feels about youth in leadership. I want you to hear me across this tri-island state. The mere fact that you can look at our leadership and the composition of our youthful team and target every time you hit a platform. So I want to say to you, what you are saying indirectly to our youthful population is that they are not good enough for positions of leadership.
That was a former senator and former NDC caretaker candidate for St. George Northwest, Senator, that's Mr. Jonathan Lacrette. Of course, in the last campaign, shall we say, the glory days of his time in the National Democratic Congress. Of course, that is a story. His resignation from the party is a story that we will be following up on. Now, viewers and listeners, on to the first segment of this week's program. On to the first segment of the program. Now, as one of the pioneers of developing a blue growth economy, Grenada has taken substantial steps to address waste management and plastic pollution. The nation has put in place regulations for waste collection and disposal, and has also implemented restrictions on littering and non-biodegradable products through legislative actions. The country has also implemented economic instruments such as household waste management fees, environmental fees for goods importers, tourist fees, and fines to offset waste management costs. Now, despite these efforts, Grenada's waste management system remains costly and faces issues, including a lack of waste segregation, an inadequate recycling system, and a reliance on an open landfill site. These challenges are also bookended by the perennial problem of littering in Grenadian society. It is estimated that around 15% of waste collected in Grenada is from littering. Data also shows that the percentage of litter, plastic bottle waste, amounts to 30% of litter collected. Our first guest, who is the secretary of the Grenada Green Group, is here to talk about his organization's efforts to advocate for introducing anti-littering legislation on the island and find innovative ways of exporting plastic waste as recycling raw materials. We are happy to be joined by Mr. Ian Blakely, who is making his appearance on the Bubb Report for the first time. But I suspect, given the nature of this topic, sir, and given my passion for environmental issues, I suspect you will be back on the program in short order. Welcome.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for giving a hearing to what is a bit of a Cinderella subject, I think. And of course, we arrogantly think it's rather important, but not everybody is of that opinion, and we're trying to put it on the map and make sure that people realize the serious consequences of littering.
I like your framing of it as a Cinderella subject. Some people may think, oh, it's not a sexy topic or whatever the case might be, but it has to be given the current climate crisis we are experiencing, and given our posturing as on a policy level at these COP meetings where we talk about sustainability and blue economy and all of those things. Yet the reality on the ground might be a bit different.
The reality on the ground is exactly what you've said. It's on the ground. And I used to try to measure how many steps between seeing a piece of litter on the average walk along the average street, but I got it the wrong way round. It's how many pieces of litter per step. And that's when we decided we had to do something about it. If I can just go into the history of the group very briefly.
Yes, sir.
Being Mandu Seals, who used to be Grenada's best known tour guide and possibly still is, who came stomping into our office once, I having worked for Sensation Tours that specialized in German guests, and he glared at me and said, "What are we going to do about litter?" And as he was standing between me and the door, I couldn't escape. And we formed this group, possibly not well named, because Grenada Green Group G3 suggests that we're interested in green matters in general. Well, we are, but we're focusing solely on trying to change the mindset that means that is acceptable. We are not another pickup group. We started with the best intentions being another pickup group, but we soon changed our tune when we turned up at Seamoon a few years back, Saturday morning, picked up everything in sight, aided by locals, went home feeling a good job had been done, and by Monday afternoon it was all back. So we have to tackle the disease and not the symptoms.
Absolutely. So what you're saying here is the disease here. So now let us talk about and you articulated in the preamble on your website. You talk about the problem of littering, and you just personified it here by talking about the fact that you went to Seamoon one day, you did the cleanup, then you went back, and it was the same thing. I've made the same observations at several tourist sites in Grenada, including at the Welcome Stone. I remember visiting Grenada one year and going up to the Welcome Stone, and I'm saying, is this a baby perseverance? Just all of the plastic strewn all over. And it's not that there was not a trash can at the entrance of the site. There was a trash can there, yet you still had that garbage. So is this a cultural issue that we need to tackle as well?
Well, in a word, yes. The Welcome Stone is a horrendous example. I'm very glad you brought it up. A well-meaning tour guide from Mount Horn placed trash cans there. And the problem there is, of course, who's going to empty them? It's an inaccessible place. Solid waste isn't going to go all the way up there along that path to empty it. And we can't actually have a rotation of tour guides who can go there often enough. But you named one example. The top of Mount St. Catherine has seen litter. The top of Mount Kwakwa has seen litter. The way to Mount Kwakwa is strewn with it. It's everywhere.
Now, we also have the issue of illegal dumping. We had a segment with the Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority a few months ago, and they really examine the scope of, and we're talking now of commercially situated illegal dumping in Grenada. I'm sure that is an issue that's on your radar as well.
Very much so. There was a particularly horrendous example about a year ago where a lawyer died and the contents of his house, which could have been sorted into categories and perhaps the clothing gone to GARP and perhaps the law books he had gone to law students, were simply shoveled onto a truck, bound for Perseverance. But the truck driver decided he didn't want to go to the trouble and expense of going to Perseverance, so he dumped it on the way to Bacalet Beach. That was particularly horrendous because the picture that I received was taken by a fellow lawyer who was driving around his relatives who had come down to the funeral. It was really heart and gut wrenching to see that dumping in a place that the public can be expected to access.
And I know that the Solid Waste Management Authority, they are attempting with the resources that they have to enforce this problem of illegal dumping. In fact, I believe they were able to bring charges against some individuals who were caught in that act. But do you think that that is enough to tackle this issue?
Firstly, I'm full of praise for solid waste. I think they're probably understaffed, overworked, and doing an extremely good job with the resources they have. I really admire all the individuals I know within solid waste and who have worked very well with us. Secondly, is it enough? I think once there are a few high-profile prosecutions for dumping, it will be a bit like the seatbelt law. Once there have been a few convictions, the message will get round. There wasn't a particularly unpleasant incident again. I know I say everything is particularly unpleasant, but that's the way I feel. Savon-Swayze up north near Bath Way, outstanding natural beauty, views to the islands. Some sumptuous houses have been built there by Grenadians who have returned from abroad. And a truck came and dumped building materials. The number was taken of the truck. There were witnesses. Reports were made to the police. But because the 2015 Abatement of Litter Act has not yet been enforced, 2015, it'll be 10 years old fairly soon.
Yes.
The police have their hands a bit tied, and frankly, I think that their motivation is suspect. And in the end, the really unsightly heaps of building materials were bulldozed into the sea. Now, there's an environmental triumph for you.
Bulldozed into the sea. And of course, sir, you've sent us some images of the extent of this littering. And, you know, I'm going to share some of them so that our audience can really see the work that you have been doing in attempting to address this problem. But you're not only here to talk about problems, we will be speaking to solutions as well. Yeah. Here we have we have one. Yes, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Can I just preface this by saying that one Grenadian friend said to me, they're comfortable with it. And another one said, it's my country and I'll litter where I like. And that is the mindset we're up against. If I can just do a commentary as you whiz through these. These are what I call the port rocks between the cruise ship port and the water taxis. So the very, very first impression that some of our tourist guests get of Grenada is litter. They've been sold pure Grenada, and this is what they see. Next.
Yes, let me pull up the other one here. We have another image here, and this one is, there we go. Oh, no, that's not that one. That was the first one there. Let me go ahead and get the other one. I saw those, and it's just look, there is another one. Go ahead, sir. Yes.
Well, that's what I would call a typical dry season drain. People somehow haven't got the message that there's a difference between a bin and a drain, and they throw stuff out of cars. And if the debushers, whose job it is not to pick up litter, pass before the first heavy rains come, all is clean and gleaming again. If not, this gets shoveled into the sea. And when we're finished with this, you might ask me about the effects of decomposing plastics in the sea.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to the other one. There's so much here. I believe, you know, this work of awareness is so critical, There goes another one. That looks like a drain in town or something like that.
I can't remember exactly where this is, but once you get an accumulation of garbage and a bit of water, it gets shoveled into the rivers, shoveled into the sea. And I'll mention it now. Once you get plastic, in particular, decomposing in the sea, it's not that you get chunks of plastic. It ends up as a kind of fog, very, very tiny. It combines with the phytoplankton that fish eat. It doesn't go in at one end of the fish and out the other. It stays in the fish flesh. We eat the fish. We are literally eating our own garbage. I think the figure is 93% of Americans have been found to have plastic in them, in their flesh. And the effects of plastic in flesh, in us, are still being investigated. But of interest to Grenadian men, in particular, one likely effect found in Australia is a reduction in the sperm count. And one effect that is being researched at the moment is a connection between plastics absorbed into the body and erectile dysfunction. There are other endocrine consequences that are still being researched. But the thing is, plastic is recent, and the effects of eating plastic, which is what we're doing, are still being researched. But it ain't good.
It's not good. Let's continue here. And this, there are two jarring images I'm about to share, and we can have a conversation about those. So let us take a look at, I believe it's this one. Yes.
That is at Pathway Beach, and that is after a Labor Day celebration where everything got more or less swept together and left for solid waste to collect. Were there bins? Yes. Were there bags? Yes. Could they have been used? Yes. Is that everything that the celebrations generated? No. An equivalent amount probably went into the sea and had the effect that I've already mentioned. When there's no celebration, by the way, it's just almost as bad. I stood on a bridge in Guave and watched one piece of plastic per minute go into the sea. Multiply that by the rivers in Grenada, increase that at times of high flow rate, because this was lowish flow rate, and you've got a serious burdening of the sea. And quite apart from the known problems with litter, it attracts rats, which have the killer disease leptospirosis. It attracts mosquitoes, which use small quantities of water in quite small receptacles, spoonful of water, as breeding sites, hence Zika, chikungunya, dengue. This is known. It brings diseases and it puts off tourists. Diseases are an economic drain, individually and to the country. Tourists are an economic bonus. We can't afford litter.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me go ahead and share. There is another one here that seems to, it looks like a panoramic shot. Let me see what number that is here. That is number 12, or image 12. Let me pull that up. I suspect this is a Perseverance, correct?
That is Perseverance.
Yes.
Solid Waste was kind enough to give us a detailed tour and commentary of the Perseverance dump site. And it's just about full. I would liken it, without consulting them first, to a teaspoon. If you get a recipe, it says you might want a teaspoon of sugar. Now you can have a level teaspoon, a rounded teaspoon, or a heaped teaspoon, and the heaped teaspoon is in danger of the sugar falling over the edge. Perseverance is probably at the rounded stage. We then get NIMBYism. I don't know if that's an American expression, not in my backyard. I don't want another Perseverance near me. Solid waste will have no option but to start another landfill if we go on filling it at the present rate. And statistics seem to show that we're going to fill it at an accelerated rate. There are two easy ways of making the situation slightly better. One is to stop sending vegetable waste there, but composting instead. And another is to stop plastic bottles going there And that is something that our group has become involved with, that you might like to ask me about in a minute.
Absolutely, and we will be getting to that. But based on the extent of plastic waste, again, the research and the data shows that a lot of the litter and a lot of the waste that we generate is plastic. But in the context of how much of that plastic is actually recycled, is there anything that the Green Group does to support recycling efforts? Is that even on the radar of policymakers at all?
On the radar of policymakers, I think yes. Green Group can't do very much because we're a little group, with the exception of my retired self and one other. Everybody works full time. And I just admire my G3 colleagues that they manage to fit in any time at all, but some of them do absolutely brilliantly.
Right.
Solid waste does want to shred and then pellet, though they haven't got a pelleting machine yet, and they need various permissions to operate everything. And then the plastic bottles become a potentially exportable raw material from which you can make everything from textiles to furniture. So that is very much on the radar, and that's beginning to happen, and that is why we're collecting the plastic bottles now.
Okay, so let us segue into a conversation on the plastic bottle collection. Of course, we know that you just articulated that there might be efforts to essentially begin the work of recycling and reducing a lot of that waste, so that again perseverance can become sustainable. Because as you mentioned, I'm sure the people of the pristine Virgin Parish of St. David next to La Sagesse, might not want to have a dump site in a place like Confer or whatever it is up in St. David's there, or any in other neighborhood. I mean, it's just because our size would make it very difficult for us to have a landfill in a location that is not close to where people are living, essentially. So let us talk about the efforts that you as the Green Group are engaging with to perhaps reduce that amount of plastic that we have in our society, whether it's through littering or whether the amount of plastic that is sent to perseverance.
Well, what happened, a group called Unite Caribbean discovered us. One of our members attended a conference with Unite Caribbean and said that we might work together. Recycle OECS is also involved, and they funded us to collect plastic bottles as best we could. And what we did, we started treading in the footsteps of a previous plastic bottle collection that was carried out by a different organization 2 years ago that was interrupted a bit by COVID. I got COVID during it. And we advertised on radio and the press and so on, and the response was lukewarm. And then, following a suggestion from a friend of mine, I approached the marinas. Of course, marinas don't just have plastic brought in by people on yachts, but they also have restaurants. And the marinas have been contributing extremely well. We're delighted with them. Hotels have a separate arrangement with the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association, whom I want to give a big call out to, because now the funding from Unite Caribbean has come to an end. We are going to get more funding from the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association to keep collecting bottles for many months ahead, possibly all of next year if it works out. We collect them at Camerhone Park, though we are trying to collect them at locations further north. We weigh the collections brought in by individuals, by marinas, by restaurants, by any group that is contributing. We record how they heard of us, how much they brought, give little prizes to people who have brought the most, and we hand it over to Solid Waste, who then take it on to be stored and then shredded and pelleted. We're trying to go to places further north. We're about to go to St. Andrews for the second time this coming Saturday. Our collection days are the first Saturday of each month. We have collected once in Sauterres, but that was a bit disappointing. And the problem with the North is that there are no major suppliers of bottles. We don't have marinas and restaurants and hotels. We just have little village suppliers, and they have to bring it to collection points, and that's difficult. So what we would like to do now, for which we will need permission from the Ministry of Education, and the solid waste contractors will need to agree to this, is place big wire bottles, sort of model bottles, in a few schools as a pilot scheme, and see if we can use them as collection points for communities.
Very well, as collection points for communities there. But let us talk about the current collection points we have in Grenada in respect of the waste collection. I'm sure that the Solid Waste Management Authority, they have their networks where they collect, I suppose, a lot of refuse from different communities. But with the current pre-existing network, would you want to be working with the pre-existing network? Or do you believe that it might be necessary to create a separate stream specially designed for recycling?
I think we want to try whatever works, and we're still experimenting. We're learning as we go along. We've only been doing this since June, monthly collections, and we hope to establish a system that we can hand over to solid waste and say, okay, this works. Can you run with it? We'll help in any way we can. Though what solid waste would like from us mostly, they said, is for us to be their voice, to tell people about the problem of litter, to say that it matters, and to encourage is the new word, beg, I think I would say, people to use bins and not roadsides. There's a picture that I would like you to show, if you can put it up.
Yes, sir.
Of a full bin.
Oh, yes, I'll put that up now. Let me put that up now. Let me get that one. That one is in the rotation. The full bin here, yes. So that's number 7. All right, let me put that up. There we go.
The problem we've been having with bins, we've been putting them out clearly labeled. I don't think you need a very high reading age to see plastic bottles only. And let me give a small prize to anybody who can spot a plastic bottle in that bin. This is a major problem we have. And it's a major problem solid waste has. They've been putting out differently colored bins for months now. It must be getting on for a year. Blue bins for plastic bottles, yellow bins for glass and metal, and green bins for organic waste. And the segregation of types of litter has been, I would say, completely ignored. I don't mean largely ignored, I mean completely ignored. What goes into which bin seems to be entirely random. If you can scrutinize this picture, you'll see behind the blue bin, there is a dark green bin.
A dark green bin, yes.
Waste. Now, this is really quite extraordinary to me. I've come to the conclusion that litterers are not literate, because the plastic bottles only bin is full of general waste, as you can see. And lo and behold, the green bin behind it has got as many plastic bottles as anything else. I spent 2 hours in the searing sun picking out food-covered, maggot-covered plastic bottles from the plastic bottles only bin, where it should have been pure bottles. During this time, I was attacked by a security guard who was very much on our side, and I won't use the language he used, but he said something to the effect that a 7-year-old child could read that label, so why can't adults read it? He was at least as frustrated as I was, which was gratifying, but he can't be expected to police the bin all day. And this is one of the problems. Solid waste is having the problem with their different colored bins. Their contractors in places are no longer willing to empty them into separate areas or separate collections, because there's no separation of waste by the people who use the bins. And we're having exactly the same problem with these. At an industrial estate, I've actually gone around knocking on doors saying, have you seen the bins outside? They've been there for 4 months now. And the answer has usually been no. One woman said, I haven't seen a bin, show me. So we took 3 steps outside the door, and there it was, labelled. Now, it seems odd that we need to go to that degree of what to me feels like patronising people, but we'll have to see if that works. And then maybe, bit by bit, incrementally, people will get used to waste separation and the need for it. And part of our job as a group is not just collecting plastic bottles, but educating. And you might want to ask me about that if there's time.
Yeah, and there has to be a cultural shift. Yes, we have a few minutes until we get to the second segment, but there has to be a cultural shift here. And I suspect that cultural shift begins, they say, do not bend the tree while it's young, or something like that, one of those old sayings. But I suppose part of that cultural shift would start at the level of the school system, right? Or even charity beginning at home.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'd like to quote Neil deGrasse Tyson. You know him, don't you?
Correct. Yes, he's one of my favorite
American
astrophysicists.
astrophysicist.
Yes, sir.
In charge of the New York Planetarium, I think. Neil deGrasse Tyson, ought to be known to a lot of people. He's absolutely magic, one of my heroes. He says, forgive the language, I'm only quoting him, everybody says, fix the kids and you fix the problem. Bullshit. Fix the adults. They're the ones who are screwing up the kids. I have a lot of sympathy with that view.
Right.
This is something, though, that children can teach adults. A lot of children have to teach adults how to use technology, how to use phones, how to use apps, and so on. They can also teach their adults why littering is dangerous. The problem with littering being dangerous is that it's sort of like deferred gratification. And I think the psychologists have done experiments with children where they say, do you want 1 biscuit now or 3 in 2 hours' time? And they go for the 1 now.
The carrot and the stick approach, I'm guessing.
Right. So if you say dropping litter is bad, they don't see any bad effect until the chikungunya comes, until the dengue comes. It's a bit like tooth decay. Eating your chocolate now won't give you tooth decay in a day, a week, a month, but it will a couple of years down the line. And the time lag between cause and effect is not obvious, but it can be pretty deadly, and we need to do something about the plastics everywhere. So yes, we go into schools, we do a presentation which includes some of the slides we've seen and others. We ask schools to try to do a follow-up in terms of pledges, experiments. We're not having too much success yet, but one thing I'm interested in is surveys. If you find a lot of litter, it's nice to do a brand survey and see how many particular brands of litter are represented in the heap, and then perhaps go to the sources of those brands of litter and say, hey, how about helping fund us to publicize a bit more. Another thing schools can do is experiment with, say, degradation times. If you go on the internet to see how long it takes something to degrade, you can find anything you want. You can find that paper is gone within a week, or you can find that paper is gone within a year. I don't believe any of it. So what I ask schools to do, and who knows, they might start soon, is take different substances, paper, metal, wood, plastic, different types of plastic, including eco-plastic, put it in a sheltered place and see how much it's degraded after a year, put it in a weather-exposed place and see how much it's degraded after a year, and bury it and see how much it's degraded after a year. The Guardian newspaper in England, I think, did an experiment with standard plastic supermarket bags when they were allowed, and eco-plastic, and found after a year of burial, there was no difference. You could still carry shopping in both of them. So I don't believe in eco-plastic.
Yeah, and speaking of eco-plastic and doing that cultural shift, a few months, but I would say about maybe perhaps close to a year now, we had another environmental conversation on this platform with residents in the True Blue area who were complaining about the dumping of waste, particular sewage, into the True Blue Bay that has produced significant algae blooms that poses a significant environmental problem to the residents in that area. Now, and the reason I'm bringing that up, and that has to speak to the visitors to Grenada, the yachties in Grenada. How are we ensuring that also they, who buy into the Pro Grenada brand, are keeping Grenada's marine spaces pure?
All I can say is that the yachties buy into the plastic bottle collection by extensive advertising at the yachties Facebook, and they are bringing a lot there. So much for plastic bottles. As for human waste coming out of the boats, we don't have any jurisdiction over that, I'm afraid. You'd have to ask somebody else.
Well, we did speak with Nawasa. Nawasa appeared on that platform as well. But again, in respect of that awareness for plastics, ensuring that they're not dumped into the ocean by the owners of these schooners, I think is good to know that there is a program there as well.
It's extensively advertised on the yachties Facebook, and there is a clear response to that. So that's been gratifying, I suppose.
Absolutely. Okay, Mr. Blakely, any final comments from you before we get to the second segment?
Yes. Firstly, a plea. Please, folks, use the bins. Please bring us the bottles on the first Saturday of every month at Camahone. And one nice little quote from the Bible, which is unusual for me, but Grenadians are a religious bunch, and I really love this quote. Jeremiah 2:7, I brought you into a plentiful country to eat the fruit thereof and the goodness thereof. But when ye entered, ye defiled my land and made mine heritage an abomination. That is what we are doing. If you take the Bible as your guide, and many people here profess to, let's wake up to that.
Well, perhaps that might be a good way of getting people on board, using that particular moral suasion, biblical moral suasion, especially on a Sunday that you're giving that advice. So, Mr. Blakely, thank you, sir, for appearing on the Bubb Report this week. We hope to have you back so that we can follow the progress of this very important project that you're embarking on.
Well, thank you for giving it your personal endorsement. Thank you for having us on board. And it has really been a privilege to be able to talk about what I think is an important subject, and to see that you appear to as well. Many thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Blakely, thank you so much for appearing on this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Viewers and listeners, this is the Bubb Report. We will be back for the second segment of the program, where we will be having a conversation on triaging, the challenges confronting Grenada's healthcare sector. Please stand by.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
The truth.
Would you be handing your resignation to the Minister of Culture tomorrow, sir?
No, I will not.
The leader of the opposition, you have accused your government, sir, of using the Grenada Development Bank to facilitate the financing of personal loans for certain government ministers.
The other side is in no position to talk about those issues, and I will leave it there.
We discover new perspectives.
You know his leadership style, and so many are saying, why are you coming now to talk about those issues.
Now is the time to speak. You have the right to decide who will take over.
And you met with Dr. Mitchell, and perhaps you might want to confirm what that meeting was about in your response. But
Dr. Mitchell, like myself, are Grenadians.
We ask the right questions.
Why was there no report on the work done of the commission? And how is this new committee different from the commission that was initially established back in 2022? So who are these elements that are using you?
I'm disappointed in my political leader.
And why is that animating those political conversations now?
This is a very interesting question.
The Bubb Report with Dr. Kellon Bubb. Thought-provoking, truthful, unbiased, and truly original reporting.
And viewers and listeners, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Of course, if you are just joining us, please remember to like and share this week's live stream. And of course, if you're following us on YouTube, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube page. You can catch repeat episodes of the Bubb Report on WPG10 television, as well as on GBN television, both today, Sunday, and on Wednesday at 5 p.m. on GBN television. Now, over the last 3 months, several deaths at the nation's main general hospital has brought the state of healthcare once again into the national spotlight. These deaths highlight a lack of critical medical supplies, inadequate surgical procedures, and poor quality of care from doctors and nurses, resulting in a number of unnecessary or premature deaths. The overall health picture for the citizens of Grenada is therefore quite challenging. Chronic non-communicable diseases have emerged and continue to emerge as the major cause of morbidity, disability, and mortality among the population. And they also represent the disease burden of the nation. The 5 leading causes of death in Grenada are malignant neoplasms, cerebrovascular diseases, diseases of the circulatory system, endocrine and metabolic diseases, and ischemic heart diseases. Communicable diseases continue to be a challenge, particularly new and re-emerging diseases. For this segment, we have assembled a team of experts who work in the healthcare system on the daily, who understand the challenges confronting the health system. And our intention today is not to only articulate some of the challenges confronting Grenada's health system, but to look at proposed solutions, because part of triaging is also getting well. And I'm happy to be joined on this week's program by Ms. Daisy Hazard, who is the Public Relations Officer of the Grenada Public Workers Union, as well as the Honorable Philip Telesford, who is the Member of Parliament for St. George Southeast, as well as Grenada's Minister of Health, and Nikisha St. Bernard, who is the President of the Grenada Nurses Association. Of course, Mr. Telesford, you are a sandwich between these two lovely ladies here. But Mr. Telesford, it's your first time appearing on the Bubb Report, so we're happy to have you here, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bubb. And it's my pleasure to be here. It's my first time indeed. And I extend greetings to all of Grenada and the 2 panelists and all of those in the diaspora. It's a pleasure for me to be here.
Yes, absolutely. Now, ladies and gentlemen, over the last few months, we have been hearing of many stories. Of course, a lot of those stories are personal stories told by the families of the affected who died at the General Hospital. But I want to always begin by striking a positive note first, by talking about what works. In many reports on the healthcare system, the way that Grenada's healthcare system is structured in respect of having decentralized healthcare is panned by the WHO and the PAH, who has been one of the best in the region. Yes? So I think it's important for us to start and talk about what has been working at the hospital. Nurse St. Bernard, since you're the one in the vineyard there at the hospital, perhaps we can begin with you with that opening salvo. In respect of what has been working.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Bubb. Good morning to everyone. What has been happening A lot of connections with nurses and doctors and other members of the health care who feel trying their best.
Your sound is a bit low. I'm not too sure if you can log off and log back in again. We were hearing you earlier, but go ahead and say something again. Let me see if I can. Yeah, just unmute your mic, please, Nurse Bernard. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, let me see. Go ahead and say something again.
Good morning.
Yes, all right, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, at the hospital, okay. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here to speak on an issue that is deep to my heart. You know, healthcare, I'm very passionate about it. And because I want to ensure that the public gets the quality care that they so deserve. Now, at the hospital, we are trying our best with the short staffing issues that we have, the limited material resources. We are doing our best to ensure that our patients get the care that is needed. I know there have been many talks in recent times because of the deaths, and I can understand, because when somebody dies, it's a very emotional thing for the family. It's even emotional for the nurses and doctors as well, and other members of the health team. You would have instances, and the majority of times, where nurses and doctors would be crying, because remember, we get so close to the patient because we're there almost 24/7, going and coming and sometimes doing things that sometimes the relatives don't even want to do for the patients that we take care of. And we are doing our best, but sometimes the gross disrespect and everything that we are faced, which is not our fault, to take care of one patient. There is so much things that have to come together. The nurse, the doctor have to make say what needs to be done, then the nurse would follow the order. Then we have to get blood works done for the patient. The patient may have to go and do CT scan, ultrasounds. All these things are a whole team approach when we take care of the patient. So sometimes when we are bombarded and with threats and verbal attacks, making it look like if we are not doing to the best of our ability, it hurts us. It hurts us a lot. But I know that the nurses, doctors, and other members of the healthcare team, they are going above and beyond to provide the care as much as possible within our limited framework.
Yes, absolutely. Just realize I'm off screen. Ms. Hazard, yes, I was saying what has been working. Welcome back to the Bubb Report, ma'am. What has been working? Some might say that, opening the conversation with what has been working might be a very low bar. What say you?
I don't think it's a low bar at all, because the fact that we do have a healthcare system in Grenada that's working and that we are discussing today, that we are paying attention to, means that quite a lot is working. There are 110,000 of us here in Grenada. Many, many persons from time to time seek healthcare access abroad, outside of Grenada. But on a day-to-day basis, where we access our healthcare services is right here in Grenada. And so a lot is working. And we must give high commendation to our nurses and doctors, to all of our healthcare team at the General Hospital and across the island, in the medical stations. And so we must give them high praise and commendation that so far our healthcare system, as broken as it is working. And in general, our population maintains some degree of healthiness, and we can work and we can earn a living, because without health, there is no wealth, there is no nation. And so the bar is not too low to start with what's working at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Honorable Telesford?
Yes, indeed. And I do agree with Ms. Hazard that a lot of things are working. The fact that we have so many professionals still in the system, well-trained, well-qualified, and are deeply committed to this call tells you that something is working indeed. We have invested in quite a lot of equipment at the hospital. And if you were to take a peek at what is there, you'd recognize for yourself that the government of Grenada has invested quite a lot in healthcare. What is not working is that we need to upgrade our physical structure, and that is in a very deplorable condition. What is not working is the fact that there is no parking at the general hospital, and people have to go through that pain on a daily basis when they come to visit their loved ones. Absolutely no place to park anywhere close to the hospital, and sometimes have to fetch a park all the way down in St. George's. And sometimes if they have to drop off their loved ones, that too can become very problematic. But a lot of things are working, and we are definitely committed to making things work even better.
Mm-hmm. Now, and speaking to making things work better, Minister. Now, I understand that the government of Grenada has entered into a memorandum of understanding with Mount Sinai Hospital. And of course, the Prime Minister and yourself, you've spoken ad nauseum about this. Now, how would this memorandum of understanding help to enhance the current quality of healthcare in Grenada? And I say this against the backdrop of the fact that Grenada, in fact, does have a particular healthcare master plan that was proposed on 2 occasions. Yes? And so I'm asking myself, the work that Mount Sinai will be doing, how much of that work will be part of that, or would they be studying that master plan that already exists?
Well, we have gone past the stage of master planning and we are now in the stage of masterful working. And this is where we are taking the hospital services and medical services here in Grenada. Now, the Mount Sinai International is a leading academic medical center, right? They have been involved in consultancy services, and they have lent their expertise to a number of hospitals, healthcare facilities and systems, and government agencies across the world. So we are basically attracting the very best globally to partner with us in this initiative to transform and modernize our healthcare services here in Grenada. So this partnership really is what is going to begin to help us to implement the transformative measures that must be taken to take the service delivery to a higher level.
So let us talk about the specific terms of reference. What will they be looking at, given the current specific challenges that are confronting the hospital? Is it going to be a culture shift? Is it going to be how medical supplies are procured? Is it going to be coming up with a pricing structure? Because, of course, we do have legislation on the book that ought to have statutorized the general hospital already. And that has existed on the books for a long time. I'm not too sure why it was not implemented by previous regimes. But what will be the specific ways in which their involvement would say that perhaps, and it might not be in a year, but in perhaps the next 5 years that we can look back to say, okay, Mount Sinai's involvement got us in points A, B, and C in respect of where we are for healthcare?
Okay. So first of all, we must first appreciate that we're not in the best place as far as healthcare service delivery is concerned, right? And so the partnership with Mount Sinai will definitely aid us in moving to that next level. Now, the first step towards all of this is to appreciate exactly where we are. And that is why that gap analysis to determine what works and what could work better and what does not work at all, that must be properly determined. And after we are able to determine that, then we can move to the next step, right? So there's quite a lot to be done, but we must appreciate where we are. And this is basically where we are at this point in time. But coming out of this, we expect to leverage the expertise, the knowledge, the experience of Mount Sinai International. Now, so we must implement some management changes. Now, in any organization where you want to see where you're trying to transform the organization, there must be an evaluation of the culture of the organization. How do we do business around here? How do we meet our mission, our goals, our objectives? How do we do things? We must also determine what the history of the organization entails, and look also at the management style, how this organization has been governed. What is the governance structure, and how can that structure be improved? And this is exactly some of the things that has to be determined at this critical stage if we have to move to the next level. So we are evaluating all of this with a view to strengthen governance, leveraging the expertise via training and cross-training, because they do have the expertise with many, many years of top quality service that we can actually learn from, right? And so we are looking to enhance our structure by leveraging all of these expertise that is available to us at this point in time.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of leveraging expertise, Minister, what is the state of, and when I heard about Mount Sinai, and this is just a follow-up question coming from this conversation, the status of Ambassador Lane, I believe, who was appointed by the administration, has he played any role in this healthcare reset that the government is trying to do? Because we have not heard much about what his role will be in all of this.
Right. So as far as I know, the answer might well be no, but that was brought to my attention just last week. So I do have his number, and I will definitely be reaching out to him. Because you see, from the government perspective, we recognize that the transformation of healthcare is not the way I think or what I can do, but instead it's an all hands on deck mission, really. So we have to include the resources from the diaspora. We have to tap into the expertise that we have locally. We have to tap into our friendly governments and partners who are willing to partner with us in this noble initiative. So people like Dr. Lane, who has played a role before and who is there willing to play a role, and many others who want to play a role. What we need to do now is to involve all of them in this transformative exercise so that we together can make healthcare work for all of us.
But Minister, as a follow-up, you said you have not, as Minister of Health, you have not been in touch with Dr. Lane at all since becoming minister?
No, not yet. And yeah, not yet. I have not done so yet. It has recently been brought to my attention. It's not that he's a stranger to my mind, but I have not reached out to him as yet. I'm not too sure if he was involved with the previous minister in that regard, but it is my intention in due course to reach out to him, definitely.
Okay, and so yes, absolutely. Let me bring back Ms. Saint Bernard and Ms. Hazard here, because ladies, I want us to interrogate part of what the minister spoke about here, and that has to do with capacity, because building capacity, obviously, if we're going to be going into a new hospital, there has to be a cultural shift, they're saying, in respect of that, but also in the capacity of the staff to be able to treat with some of the current challenges that we're having in health. Ladies, I want you to react to that memorandum of understanding specific to what you hope the staff can benefit from this at all levels of the hospital. Nurse Saint Bernard, I'll begin with you. Just unmute the mic there, please. Yes.
I'm still going to have a little bit of technical difficulties, but just
we will work with it. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I understand what the minister just said in terms of Mount Sinai. They're doing a gap assessment and to see how they can help us improve our efficiency. But through it all, what I would like to see is we're not forgetting that the staff at the hospital is the most valuable resource. Through it all, we would like to see more engagement for us to have a better understanding of what exactly is going to happen, what it means, because we have a lot of questions as it relates to specialization, more training. Of course, we need better equipment. We need staffing. We know a lot of gap assessments were done in the past. For example, I know of they looked at ceiling for nursing and midwifery, the workforce in Grenada back then, maybe around 2020, where we saw that we had like a shortfall of nurses, I believe, over 50 staff nurses just for the general hospital alone. And things would have changed. Demographics have changed, epidemiology, things have changed, and so. And we even heard that the emphasis we're going to place on healthcare in terms of we have a national sustainable development plan for Grenada 2020 to 2035, where focus is placed on health in terms of preventative health care, making it more accessible for persons in Grenada, more training, more health promotions, and all these things. So we just want to ensure that all these things are not left behind. Yes, we are happy that Mount Sinai can come. We're willing to partner with everyone because our nursing mission states that we have to work with different stakeholders. But I just don't want it for us, the human resource at the hospital, to be lost in the mix, that they have questions and uncertainty surrounding their job. Because we know that a lot of our nurses left, about 60 to exact, just approximate figure, in 2018. And the only reason why a lot of more nurses did not leave, and even some of our doctors left too, is because of COVID. And COVID would have put a standfall on more nurses going. But when the borders opened, people started to go again. And in order for all this plan, the master plan, and all plans to work, we have to ensure that we keep our nurses and doctors here and other members of the health team here. And we want our nurses and doctors to remain highly motivated. But right now, they are more demoralized because of the lack of respect. Certain things, we have to hear it in the media before we are aware of it. And it shouldn't be like that. We want to see more engagement on different strategies so that we can work together collaboratively to improve the healthcare in our country.
Yeah. Ms. Hazard?
Yes, you want me to make a comment on that said question?
Yes.
Right. So if I remember your question correctly, you want to know what we'd like to see working. Is that your question?
Well, no. We were speaking about the Mount Sinai consultancy work that will be starting, and specific to capacity building there.
Yes.
For the staff and so on, changing culture, making sure that the staff is fully up to date with the 21st century challenges confronting healthcare in Grenada.
So, Dr. Bubb, let's put it this way. I am here today in the capacity of the union, the Grenada Public Workers Union, and we represent all of the workers at the General Hospital without fail, all of the workers. Sister Nikisha St. Bernard is here as a senior nurse manager at the General Hospital and also as the head of the Nurses Association. And we are on your program today discussing the Mount Sinai Agreement that we have not had the opportunity to discuss with government and to discuss with the Minister for Health, Minister Telesford. And that's unfortunate because we all will agree that our healthcare system needs a lot of help in Grenada. We need to aggressively take a hold of our healthcare system to ensure that we can provide the sort of a healthcare that we can remain here in Grenada and participate in for a healthy nation. But the question is, if the Ministry of Health, led by Minister Telesford, is going forward with all of these plans, why aren't these conversations happening ahead of time, at the front end, with the direct stakeholders, with your nurses and your doctors, and with your union representatives who represent these workers? Because capacity building must start with your human resource, as Sister St. Bernard just said. We definitely know that our healthcare system in Grenada, not just the General Hospital, needs machinery, needs equipment, from the lowest end of the order to the highest end, but you also need staff. And we cannot go into a proposed new hospital setting without trained and competent staff. As Sister St. Bernard said a while ago, when one person comes to the hospital and is unwell, or if a child dies or someone dies, we might confront the nurses or the doctors because that's who we see. But it's an entire team of persons who come together to provide healthcare for one person. So the question is, definitely we want to see capacity building. in terms of equipment and resources, and definitely in terms of our human resource personnel. But the conversation that we're having here today, the conversation that Grenada is having now about a Mount Sinai agreement, why are we now having it? Why is there so much unease and concern among healthcare providers, among workers at the General Hospital, and within the society? Because we just don't know. It seems as if this was a well-kept secret by government, and then government just came and said, here, presto, there's a done deal. And it should not be that way. It should not be that way at all. A while ago, you asked Minister Telesford about Dr. Lane. Dr. Lane is one of the foremost heart specialists in North America. And it is concerning that we are making all these plans for healthcare, and someone like him is not on board. And is it because there's not been broad-based consultation? There's not been open discourse and discussion, which should happen in our society once any plans are being made for our healthcare or any other sector for that matter. So that's really where the concern is. Of course, we'd like to jump in, or of course, we'd like to give our input, and many heads are better than one, and every single person in our society, in our country, will have something to say and must have something to say that can be respected and could be thought useful in the process of how we go forward with our healthcare system. So it's a bit unfortunate that it seems to be secrecy.
Yes. In the interest of balance, I think we ought to give the minister an opportunity. The right of reply, as we say on the Bubb Report, the right of reply. Minister, your colleague, Senator the Honorable Claudia Joseph, is aware of that because she has been on the program before. So I will give you an opportunity to respond here. What the union is saying is that perhaps there was no communication with them, with the rank and file staff at the hospital around the intention of Mount Sinai and what the objectives would be and the role that they would be playing as staff in that process.
Okay. So, well, sorry, a couple of things. First and foremost, I do agree that the staff at the hospital and the staff within the health service sector plays a key role in delivering healthcare service in Grenada. As a matter of fact, healthcare is built upon the backs and shoulders of our workers. And so we are very cognizant of that. And so we owe them all the respect that is deserving of them. Now, and we do recognize that in the past, we have seen a lot of criticism, unfairly so, being leveled against our healthcare professionals across the board. And that's not fair. And I've spoken about that on several occasions. Now, as far as the communication is concerned, we have been having meetings weekly with our staff at the hospital, right? And so we've done the western side of the island. We're now at the hospital, and the reason why there was a break in those meetings is because I was sick for a few months and I could not have continued. So although I was showing up at the office sometimes, I really could not have moved around the way that I would have liked to. I want to say that we continue those meetings, and those meetings are going to last for a few months because of the number of staff in the system and because of the shift system implemented. So you can't meet with everybody at the same time. Now, it is no secret that the vision for health at every opportunity that we get is being shared with our staff. Additionally, on my return from my illness, although I was still not fully recovered, I did have an audience with the union and share a lot of our vision and so on and the way forward. And of course, a follow-up meeting was requested, notwithstanding that Ms. Hazard showed up extremely late and she offered her apology, and we did receive it. But I'm hoping that she will be there very early for the next one. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure if the notice was already served yet, but I did ask my secretary to start moving on that so we could engage the union, because we do recognize that it's it has to be a multi-pronged approach. We do respect the work of the union. We believe they are an important player in getting all of this to happen, and we all have an equal stake in that. We all need quality healthcare in Grenada, and we all have a desire to protect our healthcare professionals. Our desire might be stronger than the union, but we do have that desire to ensure that our workers are always protected. And so that is what it is. So the communication is ongoing. I want to say also that from the Mount Sinai side, that they have been in consultation, and it cannot be done. A gap analysis cannot be done without meeting with staff. That is how gap analyses are done. So that discussion with staff is presently ongoing. However, it is a process. And so as you cannot meet with everybody at once, it happens over a period of time. So rest assured that the communication is definitely going to happen. The discussions are ongoing, and we respect all of our employees and the union.
So we are getting a commitment here, Nurse Saint Bernard and Ms. Hazard, that those discussions will continue to happen. And Ms. Hazard, some, I suppose, responsibility was placed on your shoulder here to show up on time at the next meeting.
I'd like to
yes, quickly. I'll give, because we have to go on to the other systemic issues, but please respond quickly.
There's some things that Minister Telesford said, Dr. Bob, and Minister Telesford is striking all of the right tones. He's saying all of the correct things. He's conciliatory, but it was very interesting to note that he said, we will share our vision for healthcare. So the question is, who's we? Because if there's a vision for healthcare, that vision should be crafted by all of us and by the primary stakeholders. A vision for shared healthcare cannot be shared to your primary stakeholders after you've crafted it. And it is true that Minister Telesford did meet with the union, and we commended him for that. That was June 11th, because it was the first time that we had met with a minister since this administration came into office. Minister Telesford also knew that I was coming from the General Hospital that day. I had a sick brother who subsequently died abroad. We had to ship him abroad because Grenada could not take care of him. So, Minister, I don't know if that was a bit of a low blow, but that's what my apology was about. My very sick brother, the doctors and nurses could have taken care of him, but our healthcare provision could not provide for his needs at the time. And so we had to send him abroad. Unfortunately, he died, but he died at peace in a healthcare setting that I would like to see all Grenadians take advantage of, that I would like to be able to remain right here at home and take advantage of. But the thing is, the meetings that's been happening across our healthcare system. For instance, you met with our doctors last Tuesday, Minister, but that's after the fact. So are we saying that your vision for healthcare did not entertain the concerns of doctors? Are we saying that your vision for healthcare did not entertain all of the documents and all of the surveys and things that Sister Nikisha St. Bernard spoke to a while ago, that is part of our healthcare package and has been done before in terms of examining our healthcare system? So whose vision are you sharing? Who is the vision for? Who's building the vision? That's where I'd like to leave the question. And meeting with our workers after the fact to say to them, this is what's going to be happening. That's not consultation. That's talking to someone and giving them a pill to swallow. Respectfully, Minister.
Yes, Minister, you have the chance to rebut, and then we have to get on to the other issues. But yes,
quickly,
I'll give it
quickly.
Yes, quickly, sir.
All right, first and foremost, I cannot come up with a vision. The vision is articulated by the Cabinet of Grenada. That vision was shared with the people of Grenada during the elections, captured in a manifesto, and spoken of at every budget meeting. So it's nothing new. It's not like I'm sharing something new, right? The vision remains exactly what it is: the transformation of healthcare, the construction of a brand new hospital. These visions are upgrading of all of our health system, improving our service delivery. This is, every Grenadian maybe know this by now. So there is nothing new. I just want to share that there is absolutely nothing new. When I speak about sharing the vision, I'm just reiterating. I think maybe that's what I should be saying, that reiterating what the vision has been articulated.
What the vision was, and that has to do with making Grenada the healthcare capital of the OECS, the new hospital. All of those were articulated but we really have to move on, sir. But we have to get down to brass tacks, and I want to begin here with you, Sister Saint Bernard, and to speak to the challenges of hospital staffing capacity, because I believe that is a big part of the challenges that we have with service delivery at the hospital. When we talk about that very inconsistent ratio of nurse to patient, that is a major issue confronting nurses at the hospital. We have issues in respect of wait times at the accident and emergency department at the hospital. We have issues of diagnostic testing. There are so many issues there. But Sister Saint Bernard, I want to begin with you on that question around the current staffing capacity issues. And do you believe those staffing capacity issues has perhaps caused some lapses in judgment in respect of standard and quality of care at the hospital? Sister Saint Bernard, yes. You need to unmute the mic. Just unmute your mic.
Right.
Go ahead.
You hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay,
I can hear you
lovely.
loud and clear. Go ahead, please. Yes.
Right. In terms of staffing, yes, we are extremely short staffed at the hospital. If we look at the International Council of Nurses, their standard, ICN, the standard for nurse and patient ratio, it is 1 nurse to every 4 stable, that's non-critical patients. And if it's critical patients, then it has to be 1-to-1. Now, we are seeing now in recent times, most of our patients are coming more high dependence, acutely ill. So that means we have to do one-on-one nursing. Now, if the ratio is 1-to-4, imagine that means if we have 28 patients, that means we at least have to have 7 nurses, at least on the morning shift, evening shift, and at least probably, let's say, 4 on the night shift. As it stands, when we have 28 patients or 30 patients, there's only 3. The majority of times, 1 staff nurse, 1 registered nurse, 1 nursing assistant. And those 3 nurses have to do all of the cares. So the nurse have to do her general supervision. The nurse, the staff nurse I'm talking about, and the registered nurse have to do the general supervision. They have to make sure that they take care of the patients who are critical. At times, we have more than 1 critical patient on the unit. Sometimes we have 2, sometimes we have 3, sometimes we have 4. So, of course, things would be very challenging on a day-to-day basis. And because of that, you're having now more nurses are becoming more burnt out. So we have more nurses going on sick leave and so. We have instances where nurses are on vacation and we have to call them back into work to assist us. So it is very challenging at the hospital as it relates to staffing. And remember, we no longer do so much of the training and so forth of like where we had our national nursing school, where we had, say, on every 3 years, we were putting out 40, sometimes, almost 50 nurses who could have come in and supplement the system. So every time, say, for example, we lose a nurse through either retirement or deciding to go away, it's very hard for us to replace those nurses. So it's very challenging at the hospital, but we try our best to provide the quality care that we know that our patients deserve. But it's very, very challenging and hard. Because if we have an acutely ill patient, then that nurse have to give all of attention to the acutely ill patient. So on a daily basis, we have to prioritize. And then, of course, the patients will be disgruntled. Because you lying on that bed, you think that your need is greater than the other person. You want that attention for yourself. And when the patients cannot get the attention, their family member lashes at us, the patients lash out at us, and sometimes it's no fault to us. We try our best. But we are very short staffed, and there is only so much that we can do on a daily basis.
Yeah. Now, Minister, I'm sure now the previous administration, well, the current administration in the previous campaign promised regularization of nurses. Of course, we know that the Department of Public Administration is currently conducting ongoing regularization. That's a phased approach, which I suspect healthcare workers would be at the top of that totem pole. But you've heard Nurse Saint Bernard here speak of those challenges, and of course we continue to have an exit of nurses. A lot of nurses in Grenada continue to immigrate. They would stay in the hospital for a couple of years, and then once an opportunity presents themselves, then they leave. How then do we stem the continuous outflow of nurses so as to prevent these staffing challenges that Nurse Bernard speaks about?
Dr. Bubb, we definitely have to make working in the hospital and within the healthcare sector more attractive to people. We have to find ways to do that. And one of the ways is by developing incentive packages that will aptly fit the desires of our healthcare professionals. And that is something that we are currently working on. In addition to that, we definitely would have to find a way to import in the short term some nurses into Grenada, because the rate at which we have seen the exodus of nurses over the years has created a direct problem, right, for those who work in the system. And so, as Nurse Bernard has pointed out, the nurses are stretched and stressed. And so it is very, very difficult for them to be able to pay attention to every patient that calls upon them. And that's why you hear patients complain. Some will complain and some will say, okay, the nurses are very nice. But again, we the people, we need to be much more understanding of the situation. And that's why shows like yours, we need to listen up, pay attention to these so that we can get the facts and to understand what is actually happening in the system. There is an acute shortage of medical professionals in the system, period. And so we have to find a way to attract resources to work in the system. So training, continuous training, we have to fast forward the trainings to get more people trained, more nurses, doctors, specialists, orderlies, you name it, assistants. We need nurses to specialize in different areas. We have to get those training moving with a quicker at a quicker pace. Now, again, if we have to get some of our nurses to specialize, you see what is going to happen here. We have to take those who are presently in the system to get them to go out and train. Now, the flip side of that, we can actually get trainers to come in to help them to train right here on island. So instead of them having to leave to go to specialize in certain areas. So all of these various techniques and approaches we may have to apply or employ in these circumstances, because what we don't want is to create another problem by trying to solve the existing problem. So it is a very, very complex issue, because it takes between 3 to 5 years to get a nurse trained in the system. So it's definitely something that we have to look at.
Now, Honorable Telesford, I want to pick up on two issues here. One has to do with the nursing school. Now, in the last campaign, your party promised to return the nursing school, and it's in the manifesto, which I had to go back and review for research in this program, that you are going to bring back the nursing school within the function of the state at the TMI Community College. That has not happened. And the second part of that question is, of course, I suspect that maybe you maybe not have plans to do that. The second part of that question, you mentioned bringing in external trainers, perhaps from Grenada. What would that look like, and how would that look like? What would that look like?
Okay. Yeah, so the reintroduction of a nursing school, Grenada Nursing School, is something that we are definitely going to consider. With the outing of so many fires in the system, we have not actually started that as yet. But as part of our agenda for 2025, we will undertake a comprehensive study as to how it is to be reintroduced. So we have to do some research work on that, and hopefully by the third or so quarter in 2025, we hope we can complete that body of work. So how would it look like bringing professionals to come to train our people here? Now, we can do it in a number of different ways. We can do it by utilizing the services of the SGU or even through the TAMCC, where they can come in to train for, let's say, they would visit once every quarter for a number of years to get us to, depending on the type of specialization that is required for nursing. So again, these are ideas. We have not really nailed it down as to how it's to be done, because it cannot be done in isolation. So we have to talk to those the professionals to find out what's the best way to go about this. But so far, it is something that has been floating around during our management meetings, that we can use an approach similar, and more likely than not, we're going to start that process rather soon.
And yeah, so talking about those external training partners, external training people who do external training, what is the because I believe you touted, and I am always, I could be subject to correction, but you touted, I believe, some of the training facilities that could be used at the hospital. What about ensuring that these particular training agencies meet a particular standard? What's the accreditation process there to ensure that the training that is conducted are up to par with the expectations at the hospital?
Right. So there is a regional body that regulates nursing, and so they will guide us as to what can be done. But generally, you get specialists. For example, Jamaica run a very robust program right now. So does Guyana. So we can learn from their experiences. We can learn from. Right now, we have nurses in Jamaica who are undergoing that kind of study at this point in time, specializing in different areas. So we can sort of implement something similar to what they have by utilizing their own. Well, we can speak to our fellow colleagues in the region to find out how they do theirs, so that we can employ something very similar.
But I believe we do have in Grenada, we have, and St. Bernard can correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I'm not a medical expert, but I believe there is a nurses' council, a nurse St. Bernard, that's responsible for accrediting those who are tasked with training nurses?
Yes, we're not accredited, but to approve. We have the Nurses and Midwives Council of Grenada, and it's committed by law to certify suitable nursing schools in Grenada, together with the buildings, the teachers, the facilities, and you have to go through the curriculum and so. So there are policies and procedure guidelines for evaluating and the approval of schools of nursing and nursing education programs in the Commonwealth, Caribbean as well. And then even further, there was a meeting, the 14th meeting, I believe, of the Council for Human and Social Development, that's COSAD, held in April 2006, where health ministers within the CARICOM have taken a decision that the Bachelor of Science degree in nursing should be the minimum entry requirements for practice as a registered nurse in the CARICOM region, right? And so all that will come into play when they have to give approval for certain nursing education and so within Grenada.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure, Ms. Hazard, you wanted to add anything on that issue there. Yes.
Absolutely, Dr. Bubb. I'm listening to Minister Telesford, and I'm even more concerned about our healthcare, the status of healthcare in Grenada now than I was at the start of the program, because if I'm to concise down what Minister said this morning, it's a lot of we will. Minister told us that there is the intention to import staff in the short term. There is the intention to create packages and so that will incentivize nurses and our healthcare professionals to remain in Grenada. So all of that is futuristic. But the frameworks that train our nurses for retention and train our nurses to the extent that our nurses were foremost in the region and even in the world when they go abroad, all of those frameworks are there. So there is nothing for this administration to invent. Really, there is nothing for them to really try to figure out, because the blueprint for how we train our nurses, for the organizations and so, which Sister Sinbon I just referred to, and Minister also, all of that is there. The Nursing Council of Grenada there's whole volumes that describes what our nursing fraternity should look like, how they should be trained, what our nursing to pay. So all of that is there. So the sort of an intention I'm hearing about where we will and we've been looking at, and the question is it the 15 members in cabinet, as Minister said earlier on, that's doing all of that visioning and envisioning without recourse to persons who can direct them, who can point them to where the system ought to go. It is unfortunate that in the previous administration, the nurses were removed. The nursing school was closed up and our nurses were sent to SU. That model is really not working for us because
so you are admitting
it. Allow me to get them going. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That model is not working. But Miss Dr. Bubb, you started the question. You started this present segment by asking about regularization, and our dear minister skillfully navigated right around that and did not speak at all about regularization. The union is here today to say that the package that nurses want, the package that our doctors want right now, the incentivization that they want right now is regularization. They have been toiling at the General Hospital. They've been there for many years. They are on contract. They're receiving new contracts from this administration. They are receiving contracts that do not take into account their previous years of work and toil in our medical services. They are receiving contracts that speak to salaries that they are not receiving and have not received. And so what we want, the package that our healthcare workers want right now is regularization. Permanent established job. Even while we seek to think about what can be done in the future, what we want right now, what can be done right now is regularization of our nurses or doctors or healthcare professionals. It was done en masse in 2023. By October 2023, there were 111 teachers regularized. We do not have those same numbers for healthcare. GPA put out a statement recently speaking about the number of persons who have been regularized across the system and within the healthcare fraternity. To date, what they have said is seven nurses on the community healthcare sector. We were not given names, so we do not know if those numbers, even the 7 that we've been told about, if that is true, because we do not have the data. We don't have the names, and our workers have not been able to provide us with letters that says, here, I'm a permanent established worker. So I don't think we can duck around the question of regularization in Grenada while we talk about incentivizing in the future, because the incentivizing that we need right now is permanent established jobs. So that we can.
But Ms. Hazard, yes, Ms. Hazard, the question that I was going to ask you is, you are going to concede that a lot of what this administration has inherited, especially in the context of the nursing school, is something that they met there. This is not a today issue. And a lot of the issues that we are experiencing in healthcare are structural. They are perennial. They did not start last year again. So I think it's important to make that point as well. Do you concede that?
I don't need to concede it. It's factual. That is part of the Grenadian understanding. I don't have to concede it. It's not mine to concede. It is a fact that the nursing school was scrapped. It is a fact that our healthcare system is where it is today because we've had successive administrations who have not done enough. And we've had the last administration that went out of office in 2022 who did not do enough and who broke the system in many cases. What we're talking about here today now is regularization. And I just pointed to you that in 2.5 years, this administration was able to regularize other sectors, other workers within the spectrum of the public service. And so why haven't we placed that focus on regularization on our healthcare workers? I made the point on a program before. When I started to teach, I did so straight out of school. I wanted to be a nurse, but I could not begin to nurse straight out of high school. I would have had to have been trained at least how to clean a wound, how to suture. So why aren't we seeking to retain immediately, post haste, with alacrity? Why aren't we seeking to retain our healthcare professionals and give them the peace of mind that they want? And Minister Telesford knows because you've been talking. You spoke to the doctors recently, and what they have said to you is they want to be regularized. That's what our healthcare professionals have been asking of the government of Grenada, of this present administration, regularization.
Yes. Minister, we would, of course, give you the right of reply, sir.
Okay, well, let me start this way. When I met with the doctors, nurses, and support staff at the hospital, I started by listing the priority areas for the Ministry of Health. And priority number one, as we have said in every single instance, is the regularization of our healthcare professionals. That's priority number one. And so we've said that on every single occasion because that is what we are doing. The process has started, right? And Ms. Hazard spoke about somebody signing a contract or worker signing a contract for a higher sum, but they're not being paid for the higher sum. So simple maths, if you sign a contract dated back from 2020 to 2024, which takes into account that 4-year period of employment, of historical employment, for a higher sum, it only signifies that you will have to be paid retroactively the difference from what your lower wage was. So now the government of Grenada has an instrument on which they can now use to pay you the difference. But had you not signed that contract, there is no instrument on which you can make that decision to pay. And we know this is how the system is set up. You must have an instrument on which to make those payments. And so when the employee signs on the dotted lines saying, I agree to this contract, I agree to this new and increased wage, then the government of Grenada can now process payment for and on behalf of the employee. So it seems as if, as a government, we're doing a great job in terms of rewarding our employees for the years of service instead of just having them to sign the old wage. So I think it might have just been a little misunderstanding that what the employees signed was actually legitimate. That is what needs to be signed so that they can get the retroactive payments.
Dr. Bubb, pardon me, but I must come in.
Yes,
because,
go ahead.
You see, I don't think we can allow the public to go away thinking that workers are being treated fairly at the hospital and in our healthcare services when they sign new contracts. First of all, workers have no say-so over their contracts. They are asked to sign contracts and they have to sign them. We've had instances where workers would have said, I would like to take my contract away because if you're asking me to sign a legally binding agreement, I should be able to see that, to peruse it, to take it away, to speak to my union, to speak with my family, to talk to my lawyer if I want to. But they do not have that luxury. They're made to sign on demand. Secondly, they're made to sign on demand contracts that ignore the 20 years, the 15 years and so of service that they have already given this country in the respective medical plans where they are working. And that's facts. I'm not making it up. So Minister Telesford is correct. Workers might be given a contract to sign that dates back to 20 or 22 in 2024 with a higher salary. Hopefully, that person may receive the short payment. Now, the ease with which the minister says, once they sign the contract and it's a higher salary, then they will, minister says it as if it's so easy. It's not that easy. To get a short payment from government, you have to walk, you have to talk, you have to bark, and you have to beg. And more often than not, workers go away without their short payment because just to stop being frustrated. It has happened to me in the service. It has happened to Sister St. Bernard. It has happened to so many workers. So we can speak to it. We're not making this up. The second thing is, if you're asking a worker to sign a contract in 2024 that dates back to 2022 and they did not have a preceding contract, or that new contract ignores all the years that they've already served, what you've done is made that worker, you've created a condition where you are pretending that this worker has just started toiling, that nurse or doctor in the medical field, in the hospital, with the people of Grenada. And that's not true. So I really had to stick that point here, that we do not go away believing that our workers are being treated so generously and so humanely and so wonderfully in our hospital and hospitals and across the country in our healthcare sector. That's not the truth. The truth is that they are being made to give up their years of service because they're being made to sign contracts that ignore those years of service. And that's unfortunate because a person who starts to toil from, let's say, the age of 20 and you're now 40, and I'm taking the case of one worker who started in 2005 and was made to sign a 1-year contract the other day. And I'm taking a case of another worker, that's an orderly, who started 16 years ago at the Richmond home and was made to sign a contract last month that's dated back to 2022, and she cried. And workers are crying, signing those contracts, because you know that if you do not sign, you lose your job, but you sign so that you can keep your livelihood today, knowing that you're giving away years that you've already served in this country, or feeling that way. That's how our workers feel. And if Minister Telesford did not know it before today, Minister, through Dr. Bubb, I really want to let you know, our workers are not happy with the contracts that they are being made to sign. They're being made to sign under duress. That's the word.
Minister, the union rep here is making a claim, I suppose, that the workers are not comfortable with the contracts that are being signed. Is that something that has been communicated to you by the workers?
So, Dr. Bubb,
by the ministry. Yes, sir.
First and foremost, we cannot pretend that this is not what has been happening for, at minimum, I'll use the number 16 years, because union leaders spoke about 16 years ago. For the past 16 years at minimum, this same situation existed. So we cannot pretend that this was not happening for all these years. Secondly, in 2020, 2021, 2022, up to 2024, these workers had no instrument of appointment. Let's get it straight. So at least the government of Grenada is recognizing that somebody is working and somebody actually exists in the system. But funny enough, what if, and this has happened, I've dealt with cases like this, what if that same employee referred to union leader Hazard, what if that person had just turned 60 and was just about to leave the system with no instrument of appointment because previous administrations failed to recognize that they existed? Those situations has happened. The good thing is, we firstly recognizing that you exist. And secondly, we move towards regularization. But this is an emergent, not emergent, but an emergency that we have to respond to. We can't wait. And that is
staffing emergency, capacity emergency.
Of course. Because you see, these people at least at minimum, you give them a contract to at least have an instrument in their hand to recognize that they exist. The regularization process will treat with the existence of people under the laws of Grenada as it applies and the PSC rules. That is another story. And those who know the rules, know the system, know the legislation, will treat with it in that manner. But from a policy position, it makes great sense for us, first and foremost, recognizing that these people do exist. Recognizing that they've been working shoulder to shoulder with their companions, with instruments, who have been getting increased salaries year after year, while you, without a letter of appointment, without a contract, fail to get your increase. Can you imagine how frustrating this is? So,
well, we do hear the frustration in Ms. Hazard's plea there.
She should have been rejoicing that at least government is recognizing that these people exist, and you are moving speedily to start at least giving them the contract while we do the regularization thing. But let me just pop in quickly. Healthcare is the most complex ministry as far as regularization is concerned. The single most complex.
And why is that? What makes that ministry much more uniquely complex than, say, the regularization of teachers that has occurred in one fell swoop?
All right. I may not be able to give you it properly, but firstly, let me say, in the Ministry of Health, you have Imani workers, you have Gren case workers, you have people without any instrument of appointment. You have people with contracts. You have people with public service contracts. And apart from that, you have a lot of acting positions. You have a lot of vacant position that is, I mean, it's totally messed up. I don't understand the subject matter all too well, but as the little that I know, I can tell you this, what I just mentioned, do exist.
So in essence, you're navigating a maze of different complexities there in respect of that capacity. We do have to get to the other issues because we're coming closer to the end of the program,
Dr.
and I want to respect your time. But Mrs. Azad, quickly.
Yes, very quickly.
I will be fast. Yes,
I want
to
to acquaint the minister with the labor code. Because you see, minister, it seems that the minister needs to have a conversation with the union. And that is where I spoke earlier about stakeholders. We are a stakeholder that's been ignored. Sister Nikisha is a stakeholder with a nurses association that's been ignored. To say to the public that this government is treating workers so well and the union should be happy, how can the union be happy when a worker is forced to give up their years of service? Because when you sign a contract, let's go again, when you sign a legal document that says you started working in 2022, it ignores the fact that you started working 20 years ago. It ignores all the provisions in the labor code for you. Even a worker that does not have a letter, it ignores the provisions in the labor code 29.5. and 36 that speaks to continuity of employment. It ignores the fact that the contracts that the workers are receiving now have termination clauses of 1 month. For no reason, a worker can just be dismissed. So when a worker had no letter, it meant that the labor code protected that worker. When a worker who toiled for 15 years, for 20 years with no letter, that worker was provided for and protected by the labor code. Now you give them a contract that dates back to 2 years that has a termination clause of 1 month. How can that worker be better off? You've asked them to give up their years of service. You've now given them a letter that says, so I can terminate
where
you
on
in 1
that
month.
Contract
Wow.
does it say that you're now giving up your years of service?
Government doing better. So you ask that worker to give up their protection under the labor code. And so we cannot allow again the people of Grenada to go away today believing that our workers are being treated fairly or they're better off. They're not better off. I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Telesford, quickly, and this will be the last intervention.
I want Daisy Hazard, respectfully, to please show where does the contract state, in the people's contract state, that you are now giving up your years of service. Where is it stated? That's not factual. That's an assumption.
Okay. Well, this is what we're going to do.
I'm at a loss for words here.
Minister Telesford and Ms. Hazard, you have given us an opportunity here to perhaps have an intervention from the Ministry of Labor on this issue, and we will be following up because that's what we do here on the Bubb Report. We do deep dives and follow-ups, but certainly on the issue of contract for service and regularization, I think those are two critical issues that needs to be followed up on. But moving on, Minister, and of course we have to get to closing comments, and of course, but there are two issues that we have to raise, sir. One has to do with the status of the Princess Royal Hospital in Carriacou. We do know that the hospital was severely battered as a result of Hurricane Beryl. What is the status of the reopening of that hospital, as well as other hospital facilities on the sister Isle of Carriacou that was so badly damaged?
Okay, thank you. So that hospital, we've been able to put on the roof and fix a number of other areas within the hospital. And yesterday, we commissioned or recommissioned the hospital. So it's now serving the public once more. As far as the other three on the sister Isle of Carriacou is concerned, three that were badly damaged, we have set in motion the scope of works. We more or less identify the contractors and getting ready to maybe within 2 or so weeks, those facilities should be, the renovation on those facilities should commence. Hillsborough facility does not need any renovation at this point in time. The one on Petit Martinique, again, the funding has been identified, scope of works identified, and we're getting ready within the next couple of weeks to get it started. So all of those facilities are on the verge of recommencement of works.
Okay. What about Princess Alice Hospital in Maribor?
So, well, basically, in 2025, we're going to do some renovation works there. Additionally, we're going to be able to put some additional equipment in that hospital. So it's working fine for now, but of course we need to upgrade it because we would like to see a lot of the patients that come to St. George from that area go directly to Maribor. I know they're doing it now, but not in sufficient numbers. So we want to be able to upgrade it a bit.
And two final issues before we get to one big picture issue. Again, we started big picture and we will end big picture. And Minister, and this is of course from a viewer, they were inquiring about dialysis care. We know that there were attempts by the previous administration to treat with providing the service of dialysis to patients in Grenada. Where is the administration on that score?
Well, we've been working on that. Last week, we met with ISG. Is it ISG? IHL. We met with them to discuss a possible relationship. Well, we have been working together, but we did that. Additionally, we are looking at the expansion of services, training of additional personnel and so on to work in that area. So come 2025, we expect to see some additional improvements with the dialysis care at the unit.
Viewers and listeners, this is the Bubb Report. We are going to take a quick break and come back for the final segment of the program. Of course, what we try to do here on the Bubb Report is to educate and inform people and do more deep dives on the issues affecting Grenada. Healthcare is a major one, and I trust that all parties here have been able to articulate some of the challenges and the way moving forward. What we will do in the end of the program is to come up with strategies for nursing Grenada back to good health. So let's stand by for that closing segment. Please stand by, folks.
Listeners, I see Michael already smiling. He anticipates what I will say. My good friend.
And I put my head on a block and I offer Mr. Brother Bishop the scalpel to cut it off.
The political leader has said several times up to last night that is not a reflection of her personal views or the views of the party. And you understand, George, how elections at the party level work.
So Dr. Pei, do you have ties? Do you have ties to the National Democratic Congress, Dr. Pei? Or rather, were you commissioned by the NDC to do
use
this
that information because it seems interesting that a lot of your advice is very consistent with what was said. Brilliant.
Claudette, good luck with everything.
You too, man.
May the best candidate win in the town of St. George.
But kill on.
Yes.
You is a tongue man too, so stop at that. Tell everybody you are a tongue man too.
We are a people who have always aspired for more. We've always aspired to do better. We've always accepted that not because your mother didn't go to secondary school, you should go. It has always been the other way around. You should aspire.
You've been there for a long time. Want to be queen of St. Andrews, but yet the problems around you you're not seeing. You can pray yourself out of the problems in St. Andrews.
Some persons were getting pension after 2 terms in office, right? And the persons that work for 26 years plus not getting anything. It's just unfair.
God is good, and God looks after me. Not just my wife is no longer here, so both herself and the father up there are looking after me very, very well indeed.
Not a few people that you pick up by the side of the road to run an election, to run in an election. These are not people that you mustered up and you pulled together a few months before you think an election is going to call and you say we want to win an election, so let's come together.
go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
That's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me have much more than diplomatic passports. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to extort the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just stay quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Well, except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this, so I'm not too sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
I think we just spoke at length about the regularization framework. So
yes, we did. But let us talk. Let us talk, Prime Minister. Let us talk about the workers who are dismissed.
The Bubb Report. We go there.
And viewers and listeners, welcome back to this week's episode of the Bubb Report. We are happy that you can join us. And we were joined today by the Honorable Philip Telesford, Grenada's Minister for Health, as well as Ms. Daisy Hazard, the Public Relations Officer of the Public Workers Union, who represents a vast majority of the public sector healthcare workers, as well as Ms. Nikisha Sen-Bernard, the President of the Grenada Nurses Association. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad that you can join us today. But in wrapping up today's program, there are two issues that I really want you to speak to, and that has to do with the reputation, or some might say that the unfair reputation that is leveled against the public healthcare system in Grenada that is not necessarily leveled at private healthcare facilities. I know where I'm going with this. There is the perception that in a lot of the private facilities, that when the patient deteriorates to a point where those private facilities are unable to sufficiently take care of the patient, they then bring the patients to the general hospital. So I want us to speak to that issue. And secondly, and Ms. Hazada, I will be leveling this at you. Now, your colleague president, Mr. Brian Grimes, he said that the union will fight any attempts at quote-unquote privatization of the general hospital. I'm not too sure where that claim came from, but what I do know is that we do in fact have a statutarization framework on the books to statutarize the general hospital. And the context of that question is to the minister as well. Is statutarization something that you will be considering? And would national health insurance inform what statutarization would look like in Grenada? So let's tackle that last issue first, and then we will go to the second one after. So I'm not sure who wants to start with that.
Ladies first.
Ladies first, Sister Hazard.
We haven't heard from Sister Saint Bernard in a while, so I'm going to try to keep my and she can chime in.
Yes.
We did get reports from workers who have met with Minister Telesford that there is an intention to statutarize, and our workers said to us, so I'm repeating secondhand, that in fact our doctors said to us that when they met with Minister Telesford on the 14th, I think, of this month, 14-15, that he indicated to them that the intention of this administration is to statutarize the general hospital by January 2025. Now, our union met with Minister Telesford on June 11th of this year, and there were two things that he said to us. He said, one, he came from the private sector, and I'm referring to it because Minister is here today. He came from the private sector, and things move very quickly. But the bureaucracy within the public sector in terms of spending and procurement really slows down processes at the hospital. I've been in government for a number of years, so I can relate exactly to what Minister Telesford has said. But he said two things to us. He said, one, he does not know if the hospital would be statutorized. That's in June of this year. And that a survey was being done. And at the end of that survey, government would then be able to chart the way forward. Our president also asked him about statutorization. I think the concept that's been put out there in the public domain is privatization. And Minister Telesford, I've heard him say, government has no intention to privatize. That's semantics. Because when the public and healthcare workers who are scared say the word privatization, they're really talking about statutorization. So to claim and to make the bold pronouncement that we will not be privatizing, but to not say, well, our intention is to statutarize, when you very well know that that's what people are speaking about, I think that's really playing a ducking game. If the intention is to statutarize, then say so, because you cannot come with statutorization in January 2025 and give it to the nation as a pill and give it to workers as a pill. But the union has a theory. And I dare say we are correct. And that's the point that my president is making. We're not going to fight any attempt to statutarize the general hospital. If that
so in principle, you support statutorization?
In principle, I would support any data that will point towards where our hospital services can go or should go. Mm-hmm. In principle, we will support any data that can point towards the correct path or the best choice or the best direction for our hospital and healthcare services to go. So I cannot sit here today and tell you that I support statutorization because I've not seen Minister Telesford or the administration provide to me contextual data that says to me, these are the options that we can look at, and it looks as if statutorization is the best one. And as a citizen of this country, far less being a union representative that represents workers in the healthcare sector, I believe that that is a conversation that we ought to be a part of from the beginning, not at the end of it. However, our concern is that if our workers have not been regularized, and they have not been, and we've also been told that from the end of the Public Service Commission, and we've been told that credibly and reliably, that healthcare workers are not being made regularized or not being made permanent ahead of the proposed statutorization. And so our union asked the question, is that a policy written somewhere? Was that a verbal policy or instruction given to anybody who is in charge of regularization of workers? And we could not get credible answers. But what it seems to be happening is that the plan for the statutorization, and I'm saying that now because our doctors have reported it. Sister St. Bernard, I think, will be attending a meeting on the 29th, if my dates are correct. And they may hear some more about it. But who's planning for the statutorization? Is it the 15, as Minister said before, the 15 members of cabinet is planning, the 15 members of cabinet shared a vision with Grenada, and so the 15 members, and so are we to take away that it's 15 persons sitting in Grenada, devoid of anything else and planning for some statutorization, and our workers going to continue to hear about it in drips and drabs, have no say in their own fate and in their own future, and the union that represents them have no say at all. And again, I'm coming back to our labor code. I'm presenting it here to the nation because this is what guides industrial and employment practice in Grenada. If you are going to statutarize the general hospital, workers have rights. Those rights are enshrined in the Constitution. They're protected. Those rights say that if a worker, for instance, is established, is working with the PSC, that worker has the right. I have it here. That worker has the right to some protection, 84.8 in the Grenada Constitution, and enshrined within the the PSC rules and regulations. And so the question is, are we not seeing the en masse regularization that we should see, that we've seen in other sectors, because there is a plan to statutarize and a plan to deny workers their benefits under the law? And we're putting minister on notice here today. We're putting the administration on notice. My president has done it before. It will not happen. It cannot happen because workers in Grenada are protected in our democratic state by a constitution and by employment acts and by the labor code of Grenada. And so, so even given workers, where you take a worker who's worked 20 years and you gave them a contract that said they started to work in 22, that worker has documentation from before that proves that they worked to the government and people of Grenada far before 2022. So whatever the plans are, put minister, let's keep it honest. Let's speak with the Grenadian people as if we are sensible people, as if we have understanding, and as if we have a right to a say in our destiny and to any plan for the healthcare sector in Grenada and for any plan for the healthcare sector that is going to affect workers, the everyday man and woman on the street who's going back home to their families. Too many families in Grenada right now are uneasy, are concerned, are sleepless because they do not know where the future of their job lies. And I believe it's incumbent upon the minister and this administration to give workers the peace of mind that they deserve while they go into the hospital up there to look after patients. I've spent time up there in the last couple of months with a sick relative, as I said before, and it's not an easy road up there. At least give them peace of mind to go to work with, if nothing else.
Minister, tell us for the question of statutorization, what would that look like? And we have to caveat this by making the point that we do have a statutorization proposal that's already in law. So I suspect perhaps the minister and the government might just be implementing that. Minister,
it can't be a secret, Dr. Bob.
Well, yes, but let us give the minister.
It cannot be done in silence and secrecy.
Correct, Sister Daisy. Let's give the minister a chance to respond.
And neither can it be.
I agree.
Yes. Minister, go ahead.
So this is not a war. There's nothing to fight about. On the 16th day of March, 1998, the Hospital Authority Act came into being, which states that the 3 state-owned hospitals now operates under the Hospital Authority Act. Mm-hmm. From then to now, we have ignored the law. We have been operating contrary to the legislation. Now, and let me be clear. I never said and will never say that any kind of data collection, research work, or anything of the sort has to happen, because there is no reason for that. If the law says that you statutorize, you statutorize. The thing is, what is required in statutorization? Statutorization is a simple exercise. The entity exists. There is a chief medical officer according to the law. It's there already in place. Director of Medical Services already in place. What do you need to statutorize? All you need is a board of directors, right? And the necessary transfer of asset to the authority and the setting up of the management structure, which could involve the hiring of a CEO, accountant, operations manager, engineer, and those things, so that you don't necessarily have to depend on infrastructure, DPA, and the other entities for the recruitment of staff and the operations of the entity. So it is not a science. Moving from a government-controlled or bureaucracy, where the bureaucracy controls the hospital, to a statutory body is not a science. It's almost an automatic process if you know what you're doing. This is nothing difficult. There is no mystery behind this. And no one intends to hide anything from anybody. That is why on every occasion that I get, I speak about statutorization, because we must break through the bureaucracy to solve the problems that confront us. The hospital, in its current construct, operating under the bureaucracy, has failed and continue to fail. Just imagine for a moment, the airport authority is operating under the bureaucracy as existing now with the hospital. And a plane is landing, and you have to wait on some public servant. Just imagine the disaster we'll have on our hand. Well, I submit to us today that healthcare and hospital services is already an emergency. And when people go to our hospitals for healthcare services, it must be treated as an emergency. So the current construct has failed. And we need a government with courage, a government with knowledge, a government with a vision to make this thing happen. And Sister Hazard, yes, the vision comes from the bowels of cabinet, because that's what the people elected us to do, to articulate a vision. So the vision was articulated in a manifesto. It was spoken about at every budget meeting. That's what we were elected to do. Yeah. I know it would be better said, we'll rejoice if the government sits on its hands and do nothing. But we prefer, to engage our minds and put our hands to work to make things happen. We are not going to sit back and, because of political expediency, refuse to statutarize the hospital. So every opportunity I get, I preach statutarization because it works. There is enough evidence right around us and in the Caribbean that proves that statutarization works.
Well, we have statutory bodies in Grenada as well, whether it's the Lotteries Authority, the Airports Authority, they all have their own revenue models.
Are we afraid of ourselves? Are we afraid of making big decisions? Well, let me say, after 50 years of a bureaucratic system that failed us at the hospital, it is time to make the bold decision. We cannot just be practicing politics and politics and politics and forget about the people. This is about saving lives, and the time has come for us to statutarize the hospital. And our aim and intention is to get a competent board of directors by the 1st of January 2025, and to get a competent set of managers who will work alongside the board and with the existing CMO, Director of Hospital Services, and the other competent staff to transform healthcare in Grenada. That is our plan. Simple.
Very well. Nurse San Bernard, your sister San Bernard, you've been there for a while. You've been hearing a lot of the conversation. But I want you to articulate and speak about moving forward for the future of the hospital. One of the things has to do with not only a new building, because yes, you can have a new building, because of course the current general hospital is situated in a new building. And the hope was that a lot of these issues were going to be solved. But here we are, some almost 25 years later after the building was opened. So over to you on the question of statutarization and what the Nurses Association hopes to see in respect of all of those major policy changes that would affect the staff directly.
Okay, so I listened to the minister and Sister Daisy on the statutarization topic. Now, it has some level of austerity for the workers at the hospital at all levels, because they are not sure exactly what it means to their job security. And remember, we are already working in a very stressful environment, and to be combated by being unsure of what exactly it means for us. That's why we're not against with any policy that will benefit workers or benefit the public. This is what we want. We want to be able to provide quality health care for our persons that are here, the persons who come from a diaspora on a daily basis sometimes. So we're not against that. We just want to know exactly what it entails, what it means for the workers in terms of what the rules and regulations that would guide them and support them. We have a lot of uncertainty surrounding job security, because yes, we did hear that our nurses and doctors are not going to be regularized because of the whole statutorization process. And we find that we're just getting, just being treated unfairly throughout the years. We've had police officers getting appointments, a permanent appointment, teachers getting a permanent appointments. Come on, mainstream workers getting the appointment. What is going to happen with the nurses and doctors? So that is the reason why that we are questioning. The union is questioning exactly what the statutorization process entails. We need more engagement. We need to have an understanding so that I can explain it to the nurses and other workers, because other members of the health team are coming and asking me what statutorization means for them. So we just want to understand the overall picture. And no, we are not against any government policy to better healthcare Of course, we want our healthcare system to be better. We want it operating at quality, not substandard. So we will support anything that brings benefit to our people, but we can't forget the most important resource, our human resource, throughout the whole statutorization process. So we just want to have a clear understanding what it entails. We know statutorization would have happened in Grenada in the past, but as the minister would allude to the fact that health is very complex. So that's why we have to make sure that all our I's are dotted and the T's are crossed to ensure we have a smooth transition throughout the whole process. Not that our workers would be more fearful and demoralized and bitter, because at least we want to be able to, work at our best, being stressless when we come to work. And that is our hope throughout the whole process. We just want to know exactly what it entails and what it means for the security of our nurses and doctors and other members of the healthcare team. We want our permanent appointments.
I'm sure that's what Nurse St. Bernard has been communicated to you by the staff as well. And would we be seeing some education along those lines, Minister?
Yes, you're gonna get a heavy rollout of what this entails. That is going to happen. But let me just say this: the Constitution, Section 84 of the Constitution, makes provision for the secondment of these employees onto the Hospital Authority Act, and the Act itself makes provision for the receipt of public servants under the authority, keeping all the benefits intact as if they work under the hospital under the public service rules. So there is absolutely, if you look at both documents, you recognize there's absolutely nothing to worry about when it comes to that. But in my view, I'm looking at something else. I look at Gren case workers, for example. Gren case workers would be easily brought under the Hospital Authority Act quite easily, because what is happening now, the question is, why are they under Gren case? They're there simply because some creative person thought that in order to circumvent the Finance Management Act, to prevent back then from exceeding the 9% wage bill, you create a vehicle in which you give a subvention to, instead of paying salaries. So they would pay the salaries out of the subvention, and then you have the employees working within the same government control entity. Now, that makes sense for you, the government, but it makes no sense for we, the people. Why? Because, as I explained earlier, two people could be working side by side with very different salaries and very different tenure of employment. What this process is going to do is to equalize everybody and to remove the unfairness out of the system. And by and large, people are going to be motivated to work as opposed to the present demotivated situation that we face with. So as I said, we might be doing the work of the union, but we are doing well in terms of looking out for our employees, because we recognize if we want them to produce, we have to look out for them. We have to provide the framework within which they work, and so that they can be happy and willing to come to work on a daily basis to serve the Grenadian people. We recognize that they have to leave the families at home, sometimes sick, to come to care for other sick people. That's a huge sacrifice. But we haven't recognized all of this. We must create a system that works not just for the government, but for the people that work within the system. That's what we're trying to do. And that's why we will partner with the union to ensure that we have a very smooth transition. So the notification will go soon to the union again for further discussions on the subject.
Further discussion, and we really have to close the program because we have gone over time. That is how dense this issue of health is. But Sister St. Bernard, as I go to closing comments, two final issues here, and I promise no more questions. Final question will be closing comments. One has to do with the consent. Now, one of the patients who was warded at the General Hospital his wife claimed that when the issue of consent was raised, that the doctor then refused to provide care. What is the standard of care protocol with respect to providing patient consent at the hospital? Nurse Saint Bernard?
Yes, I'm right here.
Go ahead.
Now, as it relates to patient care, persons do, as soon as they come into the facility, after they go to the emergency room, sometimes they do sign medical consent there or surgical consent that is giving us permission to care for the patient. So all our patients who come to our facility, once they reach on the ward, they have to sign a document giving consent before we can do anything with them. They do sign a medical consent, and if they have to get any sort of operations or so, we do have them sign surgical consent.
So what
that is one of the requirements.
Right.
So the only person who cannot sign their own consent is in terms of children. Well, then the parents will have, or the guardian, a legal guardian would have to sign their consent on their behalf. Or if the person is mentally incapacitated, then somebody else would have to sign for them. But all other individuals have to sign the consent, yeah?
Right. So what I hear you saying here is that this is an ironclad procedure. So my question to you, obviously you're not a physician, and perhaps the director of medical services can answer this. But in the case of this particular patient, she's saying that the doctor reacted negatively to when she raised the issue of patient consent. So what might have happened in this case?
Well, I'm a loss for words too. I don't understand when she's saying the doctor. No, because the doctors for themselves know that the patient have to give their consent, medically and surgically. And we would not do a procedure without them giving their consent as it relates. And especially in terms of surgeries and so, we will have a discussion with the patient. The doctor will have a discussion with the patient, or sometimes the nurse would have a discussion with the patient first. Then the doctor will come and further explain what the procedure is about. And this is the occurrence that may occur. Sometimes we have to do something else. All of these things would be discussed with them at length. If it's an emergency situation, then we'll have to shorten the time frame but ensuring that they understand exactly what has to happen.
Absolutely.
So their signature is affixed to the documents. It's not that we can sign it for themselves. They have to sign the consent, giving us permission to do whatever the procedure is.
Okay, so the consent procedure is in place. Thank you for that. And finally, before I get to you for closing comments, the issue of patients being sent to the general hospital from private facilities, is that something you've been seeing? Because I do believe that if that is what is happening, then it gives the hospital a bad name, doesn't it? Yes, we know that the hospital has those issues, but if a private facility is saying that they can no longer pay or facilitate the care for people who paid top dollar to go there because they prefer there than to go to the general hospital, then what is the reality here?
Of course, we've had instances of that in the past. Some persons would have said they use private facilities, and then because they cannot afford, the treatment further, sometimes they come to us very acutely ill, and when they recover, they would, we'll have to listen to their concerns and what they would have faced and so forth in the private facilities. So at times, yes, we do get patients coming to us in acutely ill, critical, in that light. And then we know sometimes, yes, we have good outcomes, and then other times we don't have such, we have, unfortunately, the patient dies and so forth, but we will get the brunt of it.
Right.
And because ethically and legally, there are a lot of things that we cannot say in the media to say, well, no, this is untrue and so forth.
And
we understand.
Ethically, there is information that I am privy to that I cannot talk about. So,
right.
Especially in relation to that issue. Again, I do not want to lose my credibility or get into any legal trouble, right? But I just thought it was important to raise that. Panel, this has been a very important discussion. I thank all of you for agreeing to appear on the program so that we can really speak to those crucial and critical health issues. Minister, I hope that this is not the first and last time we'll be seeing you, because there is so much to educate the public on, especially around statutorization, what the entire blueprint would look like for reimagining healthcare in Grenada. There are so many issues that we have to address in healthcare that one program does not do justice for that. So I hope to see you back again. But Ms. Hazard, I would go over to you for some closing comments. So open bat on closing comments today.
Thank you, Dr. Bubb, and thank you, Minister Telesford and Sister St. Bernard. I think we had a very robust program this morning that ventilated an issue that I'm certain not just healthcare providers in Grenada have been thinking about healthcare workers, but the entire country has been speaking about. I listened to Minister Telesford very closely towards the end, and a word that came to my mind is humility. It's a word that it came to my mind because I listened to the minister tell us that, you know, at one point I was wondering if the minister forgot where he was and whether he's speaking to all of us as Minister of Health and all of us as patriotic Grenadians. Minister alluded to persons not wanting changes to be made or wanting the healthcare system to fail. And I thought those were unfortunate remarks because certainly the intention of the union as ascribed and covered under the ILO, and I'm going to read, labor belongs to a tripartite agency, the ILO. It brings together government, employers, and workers of 187 member states to set labor standards, develop policies, and devise programs. So when we come to the table as union to speak and to discuss, we come as a partner, as a force for development, for social good, for social cohesion, for social peace and economic justice in this country and in any democratic society. And it is kind of unfortunate to see an ideology or a philosophy, a thinking emerging that somehow perhaps persons' intentions can be ascribed to sinister motives. I don't know if really that's what the minister intended, but if he did, it's unfortunate. Minister also spoke to the 15 knowledgeable cabinet members, and I'm certain they're bright and intellectual and wonderfully knowledgeable. But again, as the old people tell us, more heads than one. Every single last one of us Grenadians here, we have something to say in our country, about our country, that is important and is worthwhile and should be taken into account. And so as we go forward into building Grenada and into doing the best to develop a first world system, a first world healthcare system, where we do not have to travel abroad as Grenadians to get healthcare, or where my brother, for instance, could have remained in Grenada and we did not have to force him back to Canada so that he could enjoy the benefits of humane and respectful, a first world kind of a healthcare system. I want that. The union wants that. Sister St. Bernard wants that. All of us want that here, not just 15 persons, all of us Grenadians. That's what we want. And so I'm happy we've had this conversation this morning. We've touched on some very difficult themes. And I just want to thank you, Dr. Bubb, for allowing us this moment. Thank you.
Absolutely. Ms. St. Bernard, Nurse St. Bernard.
Thank you. I'm happy that we were given this opportunity indeed. And like Sister Hazard said, just going forward, we just want to see more and better collaboration, engagement, for us to get a clear understanding exactly what it entails. Because of course, our nursing mission speaks to it, that we want quality care for our patients, that we want the care that our patients get, that is acceptable to them and their families. We want to do more health promotion. We want to advocate more for our patients, and we want to partner with different stakeholders. We don't only always want to hear be in the light of where everybody is seeing the Ministry of Health as just being reactive. We want the Ministry of Health to be proactive, to put systems in place that we can ensure that we meet the changing needs of the public, and to ensure also that when my nurses, my doctors, and other members of the healthcare team come to work, that they have a conducive environment to work in, that they don't have to be afraid of their losing their job or their job not being secure. We want more job security. We want incentives. We want more retention policies. If we look at it, to recruit, there's a big cost into that. When we can save that money and keep our nurses and doctors and other members here within our system, we want better services for the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and by extension, the rest of the world. So it's not that we are against anything. We just want to see things improve in the right way. And we want our staff to remain highly motivated. I don't want people to come and tell me, oh, they're breaking down in tears. What is going to happen to me? I have so much, the discrepancies in salaries. All these sort of things is heartbreaking when I've been waiting for my appointments for years. Up to now, I haven't gotten it. When would I get my permanent appointment? Yeah. I don't want to leave, but they are forcing me to leave. We want all our nurses and doctors. I believe that they truly want to stay here. And some of our nurses are away. I believe that they want to come back here too. But we just have to put better things in place, better structures in place. And for us to work together as a team so that we can ensure that we carry out the ministry vision, our nursing mission, and just overall better care for the public. And I also want the public too to work with us. Respect our healthcare professionals. Listen to the advice that we give you. Let us practice more preventative care. That will be better for you in the long run. This is what I want to see. All of us coming together to work as a team.
That preventative care, I'm glad you raised this, because that preventative care piece is critical. Yes, we hear sometimes people, they go into the hospital and they want to cost the nurse this, that, they want to cost the doctor this, that, but then you don't take your medication on time.
Exactly.
But then you don't exercise. And I know the government started a MOVE initiative, and then there's so many things. Then you eat all of the processed foods. Then,
exactly.
Then
when you end up with kidney failure, we told you.
Correct.
We told you.
So and then you drink as much rum as you want to drink. I mean,
exactly.
Don't get me started on that. and then you want to go and cuss the poor nurses, overstaffed and stretched nurses at the hospital. So sorry, I'm just very passionate about that preventative piece. But Minister, tell us first. So over to you for some closing comments.
Thank you, Dr. Bob.
Yes, sir.
It was a pleasure being here in the company of Nurse St. Bernard and Daisy Hazard. This is my very first time on the show.
Yes, sir. As you see, I'm a professional. I try to keep things even keeled.
So usually at around this time, I'm just I might have left church about an hour or so ago.
Yes, sir.
So generally, it's difficult to get on a show like this, but it was an honor for me to be here. One thing that came out of this is that we all want the same thing. The union, the Nurses Association, and all the other players within the industry want the same thing. And that it is important for us to unite around a common purpose that includes the private healthcare providers, the pharmacists, all the support service providers, and this is about every single worker within the system. Our maids, our cooks, our maintenance workers, orderlies, administrative staff, secretaries, doctors, nurses, just about everybody within the system. We must unite and we must pull together if we have to lift healthcare in Grenada. And as I said in my opening statement, really and truly, this system is built on the backs of people, not things. And with the little that we have over the years, we've been able to work miracles. And so I am not at all looking back to blame anybody for the system that we have, badly broken as we met it. It is what it is. And together we have to forge alliances to get it fixed. And so we've been reaching out to our partners regionally and internationally to make this thing happen. There's a call out right now for returning nurses from the diaspora who are willing to give some voluntary service, even retired nurses who think they have a few more years that they can give to sort of, kind of block that hole, if you might call it that, so that we can just continue to offer the service that is required. A significant upskilling and training of our people is definitely a necessity. The regularization of our workers, has been really highlighted here, and I can understand the fear. I can understand that the uncertainty and unpredictability that exists within the system simply because of some of the rumors that might be heard at this time. But I want to say that the intention of government is to protect our workers and to ensure that everybody gets what is due to them, and that the system is properly balanced. in every respect, in terms of what people earn, in terms of the amount of work that each person has to shoulder, because right now, based on the ratios that were highlighted by St. Bernard, we understand that we are really, really, really stretched. And so I call upon the Grenadian public also to be patient, be tolerant. We understand that things are not at its best, but our professionals are using very limited resources with very, very limited personnel to make this happen. So together, if we find ways to cooperate and to strengthen the system, I am sure and very confident that we will see an improvement in service in a not too distant future.
And I'm sure that that is something that all Grenadians are looking forward to. All Grenadians, including those of us who visit home, we don't want to feel as if we're going into a waiting room of death at the hospital. That should not be the reputation we have. So panel, thank you all so much for appearing on this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Viewers and listeners, this has been yet another edition of the Bubb Report. Of course, this week we attempted to triage some of the challenges confronting the healthcare sector in Grenada with a cross-section of diverse views from government, union, as well as the Nurses Association. This is a very important conversation that was long in coming, but it is a conversation that we need to continue to have because there are so many other layers that need to be unpeeled here, that need to be unpacked in relation to healthcare in Grenada. Of course, I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bubb. If you have not had an opportunity to share this week's live stream, please do so. If you're on YouTube, please make sure that you're subscribing to our platform, and you can catch repeat episodes of the Bubb Report on WPG10 television, as well as on GBN television on Wednesday at 5 p.m. So on behalf of the producers of the Bubb Report, I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bubb, thanking you for watching this week's program. Take care now. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. Thanks for checking out the Bubb Report. Hi, everyone. Thanks for checking out the Bubb Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching.